Hey everyone, welcome back to Miles Beyond the Page. I'm your host, Michelle Miles, and this is the show where we dive deep into the world of writing and publishing. Each week, I sit down with authors from every stage of their journey. We'll explore their creative process, uncover tips and insights, and celebrate the highs and lows of the writing life. So grab your beverage of choice, settle in, and join me as we go miles beyond the page. Today, I'm really excited to host Zoe Allison all the way from Scotland. Hi, Zoe.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. Zoe lives in Scotland with her husband, two children, and massive notebook collection, having been brought up in a mixed race family in Yorkshire. Her favorite pastimes include reading, movies, music, and pop culture, and walking into rooms and then forgetting what she went in there for. Me too.
It's a common one, that one.
Growing up, she always enjoyed stories about falling in love, but rather than daydreaming of being rescued by a knight in shining armor, she would imagine fighting dragons alongside him. I love that so much. That is awesome.
Joint heroes.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Today, we're talking about your book, The Wedding Engagement. Tell us all about this,
Yeah.
what it's about, if it's a part of a series, all that.
Yeah, so it is the second book in a series, but I suppose they're more like interconnected standalones because they can be read and enjoyed separately. The first one was called The Xmas Holidays, and the wedding engagement is set around about this time of year, so kind of spring into early summer, and it's a contemporary romance set in the Scottish Highlands. So just a little bit further north from where I live,
Hmm.
in my fictional little town called Glenabbey, which I have invented in my head. And the main character is Scottish school teacher Liv Holland, and she's the strong one of the friendship group, the empath, who's always there for everyone else, and people forget sometimes to be there for her because she's the strong one who everyone
Hmm.
leans on. And she's carried a torch for her brother's best friend, Aaron Adebayo, for years and years. And the two have become close friends since Aaron was jilted by his fiance the previous year. And so Liv has helped Aaron with childcare for his 4-year-old son, who is about to start in her nursery school class. And Aaron has been keen to avoid romantic relationships since the fallout from his breakup and concentrate on his son. And he's also getting his new art business off the ground, an artist. And then, just when Liv thought keeping her feelings under wraps couldn't be any more difficult, they're thrust together to help plan the festivities for Liv's brother's wedding. So then sparks begin to fly. But then, as they're kind of getting involved, there's kind of wedding singer, the Adam Sandler film vibes to it. But then it's not just Aaron's complex romantic history which throws up roadblocks. It's so things in Liv's past as well. So they have to decide whether risking their friendship plus
Hmm.
Liv's close relationship with Aaron's son is worth the gamble.
Well, that
It's
sounds
the
really fun.
story.
Yeah, and then this is a rom-com, right? I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah, awesome.
yes, there's a bit of humour in there, British humour.
Well, hopefully all of our rom-com fans out there will pick that up and give it a read. So, is this what inspired you to write this story?
I think the series as a whole, I was inspired to write something that was set in the Scottish Highlands, and I decided to pick a fictional town so I could have control and not be constrained by reality when I was kind
Mhm.
of deciding what would be in this town. And this one in particular, I've always been a fan of the brother's best friend trope, but I wanted to kind of put my spin on it.
Mhm.
I didn't want the fact that he is her brother's best friend to be the conflict, because there are some stories I've read in the past where I felt that it it might be maybe not kind of what we want to see for modern day standards. If oh, well, we can't be together because your brother won't approve, and then it always sat a bit uncomfortable with me that there was maybe kind of gender double standards there. So I
Mhm.
wanted to put my own spin on it, and also a bit of a spin on the kind of the heroine that's maybe been pining for the hero for a long time, that there's maybe a bit more to it than that, and maybe she isn't kind of being unlucky in love. Maybe deep down she's actively avoiding it, but nobody's noticed because she's the strong one of the group, and everybody just assumes that everything's fine with her. So those were a few of the kind of inspirations for it. And the series as a whole, I was kind of interested to have kind of a group of 6 in a friendship group and maybe having them pairing off. So the first couple in the Xmas holidays, Maya and Sam, is Liv's twin brother, and Maya is Liv's best friend. So they're interconnected in that way.
That's awesome. So that you have obviously you have more books planned in this series then.
There is another one that is one that I've drafted. I'm just waiting to keep my fingers crossed that maybe that will find a home with the publisher, but we're waiting to see.
That's the hardest part, isn't it?
I
Waiting.
know. Yeah, I know. But hopefully that will find its way into the world.
Yeah, I hope so too. So, how did you decide on your genre, or did it find you?
I think it found me really, and kind of surprising because I'm a bit of a cynic in real life sometimes. And then romance is so optimistic and happy endings. And maybe that's why, to be honest. I think I always enjoyed romance when I was younger and the romantic subplots to movies and
Mhm.
stories. I remember when I was younger feeling like it was something to be embarrassed about liking romance. That's definitely not how I feel now. I realised that there were kind of misogynistic undertones to that sort of attitude. And I think it's something to be celebrated. It's
Mm.
something mainly produced by women, mainly for women, obviously
Mhm.
for men as well, but for everybody. Romance is for everybody. So I think although things depending on the romance can still become quite dark, and there can be darker, more kind of meaty themes depending on what sort of romance you're reading. The genre itself, by definition, has a happy ending, and
Mm.
I think it is that kind of optimism and that knowing that everything will be okay in the end, even though you might kind of go through the mill with the story and you don't often, as often find that in real life, the happy ending. So I always say, that's what I read and write romance for, is for the escapism. If I want realism, then I'll just watch the news.
No doubt. I really love that you write contemporary romance because I tried to start out my writing career as that and I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. I mean, my
Mhm.
brain was like, no, we need some magic and, maybe a
Yes.
dragon. And so
Yes. Yes.
I find that
That's
very
another good form of
fascinating.
escapism, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
These
is.
magical things that you can
Yes.
that can happen in these imaginary worlds. That's really good escapism as well.
Yeah, but I think, having a fictional town in the Scottish Highlands is always very escapism too. And the Highlands,
Yes.
anyone who's ever been there, I mean, they're just beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful. People who have been there and read my book might be a bit like, this there seems to be a lot of amenities in this town because I made it up.
Hey, you're the author. You can do whatever you want,
Yes,
right?
I'm the mayor of the town, so it's
There you go.
fine.
So, what was your first story and what did you learn from it? And this can be
um,
something like as far back as your childhood or something when you started writing seriously for publication.
yeah. I think so. The first book that I had published was with a small publisher, and that was actually a vampire paranormal romance. So it was vampire-y, but also a bit kind of espionage, vampire espionage. So about a kind of secret organization of benevolent vampires who kind of
Mm,
secretly battle the baddie vampires. And that one of the inspirations for that was the Vampire Diaries.
mm,
I love the series
mm.
Vampire Diaries. Watched all of those and went back in the books as well. Um, but I again wanted to kind of be inspired by that and pay tribute to that, but have my own spin on it because I don't like love triangles. So I decided I would have kind of 3 main characters, but it's not a love triangle. That was my first book that got published, Impervious, it was called, and the main character, the female main character, is a human, but she has a superhuman ability that makes her impervious to vampire attack. And then the follow up to that was called Revealed. The, the 3 characters in that book. So that one obviously quite different to the contemporary romance, but I don't really have any control over the ideas that pop in my head. So sometimes they're a bit more out
Yeah.
there.
So what are you working on now?
At the moment, I'm working on another Christmas rom-com because the first one in this series, the one before the wedding engagement, was called The Xmas Holidays. That was out Christmas. I have to think about what year it is. So 2023, that one was out. Time's running away with me. So I'm
Yeah.
writing another Christmas rom-com, but this one isn't connected to these books. It's kind of separate, so not part of the series. So I'm working on that at the moment, and hoping that might be coming out not this Christmas, but the one after. And this one, again, it's the Scottish Highlands again, another town that I've made up. I've got like my own county in the Highlands. And this is about, it's a rivals to lovers romance. So they're neighbours that live across the street from each other. They do not like each other due to an incident that happened a few years ago. And both of them enter the new town Christmas lights competition, and both of them will do anything to win. So sabotage ensues.
I love it. And I love that trope too. That's so fun to write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I do like that one because I've done enemies to lovers before, but not rivals to lovers, which is a good twist on enemies. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That sounds fun. So, what is your writing? Let's talk about your writing process. What does your typical writing routine look like?
Very erratic. So it is a bit hodgepodge because my day job is being a doctor, and I do kind of work full-time hours over 4 days
Mm,
job, and I've got a family as well. So I have to kind of slot the writing in where I
yeah.
can fit it. So I don't do my medical job on a Friday, so that tends to be a bit more the day that I'll write. But I kind of, when I've got kind of a bigger, meatier project to do, I'll try and kind of clear the diary on the Fridays, and then it's
Mhm.
kind of slipping it in at weekends and in
Mm.
evenings as well. So it is a little bit here, there, and everywhere.
I understand that.
Yeah,
Having a day
yeah,
job, it's all about juggling and, especially if you
yes,
have a young family too. So, yeah,
yes,
I
keeping all the balls
understand.
in the air.
Yes. So, do you plot or do you tend to just kind of be more of a pantser?
I've evolved over time, has gone on, because I started off being 100% pantser, and for Impervious, that paranormal vampire romance. I just kind of sat down. I had a vague idea in my head about the gist of the story. I didn't even know what any of the characters' names were going to be. And I just sat down and started writing. And then as I went along, thought of names and went on from there. And then very gradually over time, I've started to plan a bit. I wouldn't say that I'm a full planner, but what I like to do now is to kind of think of the premise, and then I like to kind of sketch out a little roadmap of kind of the themes or scenes that I follow through the story, and how things will end. And then I do a bit of kind of character development and think, well, what's the characters' names going to be, and what will their backgrounds be, and their personalities and characteristics, and do a little bit of that just so it means in their voice from the
Hmm.
beginning rather than trying to find their voices. Sometimes things about their voice come along the way, but just so I'm kind of in the right groove to begin
Hmm.
with. Um,
Hmm.
so I do it that way now. And the other thing I used to do was I would keep going back and editing as I went along, and I realised it was taking me a long time to get to the end of the first draft. I really don't like the first draft. I like the polishing bit that comes after.
Yeah.
So yeah, so now I don't, I'll kind of maybe read the last couple of paragraphs, but I don't let myself edit anything. I just bash it all out, get to the end, and I go back and edit it.
Wow, that's great. I see. I usually go back and I have to reread what I wrote the day before, and then I
Yes,
find myself
yeah.
editing.
Yes, and that's what I used to do. And I think, certainly that's a good way of doing it as well. But I think for me, because I really don't like the process of the first draft, I don't know what it is about it. If I just can kind of get that out, get it on the page, then I
Mm,
feel like I'm ready to sculpt then, and I enjoy that kind of sculpting it and
yeah.
polishing it and all of that. So I've kind of stayed steady in this kind of half pantser, half plotter universe for now,
That
hybrid
works for a
universe.
lot of people too. Yeah, the half and
Yeah,
half.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of the same way. I really don't ever know where I'm going until I start
Yeah,
writing.
yeah, and then yeah, you go where the writing takes you. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's nice to have that freedom.
It is nice to have that freedom. So, what tools or techniques do you use when you find yourself stuck or you have writer's block?
That is a tough one. Sometimes I find that just having a little breakaway and coming back to it and doing something else to clear my head can be helpful. Sometimes listening to music can help if I'm something on that I think is in the sort of vibe of the story that can help. But I try not to, because I used to just kind of sit there and be like, come on, brain, do it.
Yeah.
Would just sit for ages until something came. But I think having a little break and going away and coming back to it helps. The other thing I found helpful actually for this book that I'm writing at the moment was that my books so far have all been in third person. And then I found a dual point of view, but third person. And then when I started writing this one, I was really struggling. And then just as an experiment, I changed it to first person, and then it started to flow much more easily. So maybe just a change as well,
Yeah.
something like that can help get the juices flowing.
That's interesting. And it's really sometimes it's hard to go from third to first.
Yes, yeah. At first, I was, yeah, I kept, yeah, going back to third, but then once I got into it,
Yeah.
I think maybe it's to do with kind of feeling that bit closer to the
Mm,
character, and then things were
yes.
flowing, and I found that kind of expressed their feelings and emotions more easily when I was doing it that way. But I still enjoy writing them both.
Y- Yeah, I think that first person really allows you to kind of be in that deeper point of view because you're only in
Yes,
their head.
yes,
And you really have to, and to tell the reader information, you really have to be creative with
yes,
that.
exactly. Yes, yeah, that gets the juices flowing as well.
Right. So that's interesting. I love that. So can you share your journey to publication with us?
Yeah, so what happened was I'd written this vampire paranormal romance, Impervious, and I read about the Romantic Novelists Association in the UK, and I'd heard about how they have a new writers scheme that you can join at the kind of beginning of the year if you kind of pick off the mark and kind of get in there when the places become available. So I wanted to get some guidance from that
Hmm.
scheme because
Hmm.
part of it is you can submit a manuscript once a year and get some critique from a published author. And because I didn't really know anybody in the writing world, working in medicine and just said randomly into this book, I thought that would be useful. So that scheme was really useful. There was another book of contemporary romance was the first one that I put through that scheme, and then the second one was Impervious. Got brilliant feedback on that. It was really helpful and just kind of it was a bit of an epiphany where I thought, of course, yeah, this is really helpful advice. So I redrafted it, and then I was going to resubmit it the next year of the scheme. But in the meantime, I'd heard that a small independent publisher called Totally Bound were looking for a submission called for vampire romance. So I submitted to them and got accepted. And then I ended up doing 4 books with them. So the 2 vampire ones and the 2 contemporary ones, and really learned a lot about the craft of writing and lots of help from my editor there. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to try, if I could, to start to kind of build a bigger career out of it. So I tried to see if I could submit to query agencies as well as some digital first publishers who were a bit bigger, who accepted non-agented authors. And I managed to get contract offers from 2 digital firsts, and then also had an offer to sign with my agent, who's still my agent now, Hannah Todd. And I ended up going with Hannah, and she got me signed for the Xmas holidays and the wedding engagement with Berkeley, US, and then HQ Digital UK. So kind of started out from just having a go at being a pantser to going on the new writer scheme, which was really helpful. And then
Yeah.
the next step was with a small publisher and then
Mm.
a bigger traditional publisher. So that was the way it happened to be.
That's awesome. And I love that. And so, can you talk to us a little bit about the query process and how that looked like for you? I talk to a lot of indie authors, so it's
Mhm.
really rare that I get to talk to someone and kind of pick their brain.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So I took advice from kind of other writers that I'd gotten to know, and the Romantic Novels Association was really kind of helpful.
Mm,
Also, writers that I knew through there and who I've befriended through social media. And I had a look at the writers and artists yearbook for that year that has
mm,
a definitive list of the different agencies and who was signing romance. So looking at all of that and taking a peek at who authors were with, just trying to find people who might be a good fit for me. And then had a bit of a spreadsheet set up about who I was querying. At that point, I was also querying these digital first publishers as well. So I had a separate sheet for them. So I think I kind of sent out a batch to maybe, I think it was maybe about 10 to 14 agents, and then kind of a few more along the way. And I did get a couple of requests to see the full manuscript, which was really good at the end, and then declining, which obviously, is the way. So I had a couple of those, which was good, but nothing kind of really came to anything. But I did get some nice feedback, and they were saying how much they enjoyed it, but there was just, kind of maybe various things that mean it wouldn't be for them, including one of them was out at that moment in time with something quite similar. And then I think part of this process is always a bit of luck when it comes to timing as well, because my agent Hannah had just become an agent with the Madeline Milburn agency, having been an editor before. So she was setting up a new list, which would include romance. So I queried her, and she asked for the full and asked for a revise and resubmit. And then I went on to sign with her. So I think some of it is about timing as well. Someone with an empty list means there's space for new people. But I think really the key is, obviously you want to target it to people whose interest is, kind of aligned with yours. But it's good to kind of cast the net as wide as possible and have big volume, because then you're better able to narrow down who you click with and you gel with and take it from there. So yes, that was the way I did it. I just kept track of every spreadsheet.
That's really the only way to keep track of what you're sending out.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are some of the biggest surprises or challenges that you have faced during your publishing career?
I think I probably fell into that trap that everybody does, where you think when you first get signed, that's it, you've made it. You're in with the big wig. And then obviously with that small publisher, that obviously that it isn't the case, because it's, if it's someone that's kind of much less well known, and there's, not as much of a marketing budget, and so you kind of not got your name out there as much. So I think then I realized it is more, which is obviously logical, kind of a small step at a time. And the other thing I don't think I'd realized is there's so many different paths that people can take on a publishing journey, and lots of different paths, and some of them end up at the same place, some of them end up at completely different places. That was something else I hadn't realized. And I think latterly the other thing was that I hadn't realized is that obviously it's kind of, once you kind of sign with a publisher, whoever that may be, it's then this kind of process where you need to kind of keep selling yourself. So, you're kind of selling yourself to get the agent, and they're selling you to get the publisher. Then that contract runs out. You've got to sell yourself again to try and get signed again. It's not necessarily, obviously, for some super famous, super duper authors, that they don't have that process. But the rest of us, yeah. So I don't think I'd realised how many times I have to keep reselling myself. And those authors aren't that great at that usually.
It is hard, isn't it?
Syndrome.
Yes, it's something I think all of us face, is that imposter syndrome. Like I think everybody faces that. So I totally understand that. So how do you handle feedback and revisions in the editing process?
With that, I think for me, always been a believer in experts and taking advice from experts, and someone who's not originally from a publishing or a writing background, having been in a medical background. I do feel they know best, and what they're saying will hold weight. Obviously there are things that where there's compromise, and occasionally it might be that there are certain things, because you kind of know the characters so well, particular things that you might say, actually, or what about this, and say, oh yes, no, that's fine as well. So I'm always happy criticism, and it helps me grow and to kind of take on board their edits. When they first come back, I'm always really nervous, thinking, oh, this is going to be a big mountain to climb, and you've kind of drafted this book and redrafted and redrafted, and kind of worked on it so much, you think, oh god, it's exhausting to do it again. So I usually have a look at it and think, oh no, and then go away again, and then I come back, and then when I come back to it, and I like to kind of make notes about their notes to kind of structure how I'm going to tackle it, I always feel better then, and think, oh, actually this isn't as big as what, in terms of, it seems overwhelming, but then when you really think about it, no, it isn't. And then when you start to do it, you see how everything falls into line and falls into place, and how it improves things and polishes things. So after that initial scary, oh no, what have they said? It's going to be big. Then after that, once you get your teeth into it,
Yeah.
it's satisfying. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think having a look at it first is just kind of to get used to the
Yeah.
idea that you have to
Yeah.
make those
Dipping the
changes.
toe in.
Yeah.
Ripping the plaster off.
So marketing is always a hot topic for authors, even if you're indie publisher with a publisher. So what strategies have you found to be most effective for reaching new readers?
This is something I struggle with, and I'm still struggling with, to
Yeah,
be
I think
honest.
we all
So
do.
yeah, it's something that I think probably again is another thing that I hadn't quite realised about being a writer is, that this need to market yourself. And again, it feels a bit uncomfortable. So yeah, so I still don't feel like I've properly got to grips with it, or I'm that kind of au fait with it. So, and I still don't really feel like I know what works and what doesn't. So I just try, and there are certain social media platforms that I enjoy more than others. So
Mm,
I enjoy making content for TikTok, books and romance books, and being a
mhm.
romance reader, being a romance author. But I suppose my angle on it has always been that I enjoy making that content, and I enjoy it when other people enjoy that content, a bit like the book.
Yeah.
If people say, oh, that done something on there that makes them laugh or smile, I really like that. So I suppose my way of doing it is doing the things that I enjoy on social media without kind of thinking too much about, well, how is this going to, kind of sell my books? I
Mhm.
will kind of also do posts about my books, as well as just kind of stuff that's just for general consumption. And I've also kind of got to grips with doing a newsletter and trying to kind of make that regular. Again, something I've struggled with, because I always think, I don't really know what to say. What have I got to say in this newsletter? Hello, everybody. But I think it's more about the consistency and being in spaces that you're comfortable with, where people can find you, and kind of talking about your books, but also,
Right.
talking about reading and writing in general. And then hopefully people will gel with that and think, oh, go off and read one of her books because I enjoy the other content that she does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm still just basically doing the things that I enjoy doing without making it too onerous, and then kind of trying not to worry too much about how it sells the books.
Yeah. That's the trick, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're getting close to running out of time. So I want to ask two more quick questions.
Yeah.
One, do you have any advice for aspiring authors out there?
I think the best advice is to keep going. Don't listen to the imposter syndrome. Keep doing it, and don't be afraid to carve out time to write. I think, especially for
Mm.
other women with busy lives, maybe they've got
Right.
their day jobs, and maybe or maybe not, they've got family, whatever's going on. I don't think us ladies are as good at letting ourselves off the hook and taking that time to do the
Mhm.
thing that we love. And that's super, super important to get the art out into the world, but also for our creativity and mental well-being. So don't apologize for that. Take the time to write and feel good about it.
I love that. That's great advice. And the second thing, really quick, tell us where we can find you and your books online.
So I am on TikTok, Zoe Allison author, and the same handle on Instagram. I've got a Substack newsletter, and my website is zoeallisonauthor.com. So I'm out and
Awesome.
about.
And I'll have all of these links in the description of the podcast so people can find
Ah,
you and connect with
oh,
you
lovely.
online. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Zoe, for joining me today. It was so much fun to get to talk to you all the way from the UK. I love it.
Thank you for having me. It's been
Yeah.
lovely to be here and to have a
Yeah.
lovely chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So once again, thanks so much to Zoe Allison for joining us and sharing her incredible journey and insights. Be sure to check out her book, The Wedding Engagement. And a huge thank you to all of you for watching and listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share your favorite part of the conversation. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep writing, and I'll see you miles beyond the page. Thanks for joining me on Miles Beyond the Page. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. If you're an author and want to be a guest, visit michellemiles.net/podcast to apply. Keep writing, keep dreaming, and I'll see you next time.